I'm Alex Martinez. I'm not official. I consider myself a writer and a poet. That would be my title, I guess.
If you want to talk a little bit just about your background in the arts and writing and just how you got into that.
Yeah. I think I've always said that I started writing because no one was listening. So I just I just use writing as a way to communicate and to express just like all of the things. But I think I started writing when I was pretty young. Mm-hmm. Like I remember my mom still like she saved this. I would write like little songs in kindergarten. I learned how to write really, really, really young, really early, and I would write songs to her because she would go work all day, and I would just be at home bored after school, and I would just write her things, and she would save them, and it's really cute. Yeah. And that's how I started writing. I think it was just like a way to like fight my solitude. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have like were you pretty like independent with that, or was it like through school that really provided a structure for you to get into it, or like?
I think it was on my own. Like writing has always been on my own. There was definitely some influences in elementary school. Mm-hmm. Like I think that there was a lot of times where I would just not be doing what I was supposed to be doing in school because I would be just writing little things in my notebook or doodles or like, just not paying attention. And so by, I think it was either 3rd or 4th grade, a teacher noticed, finally. And they were like, "What you doing?" And they just read my little notes and stuff. And they were like, "Oh, like you're a poet." And I was like, "What's a poet?" And so they were like, "I'll show you." And they gave me a book of sonnets by this author, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, who was like a daughter of Spanish military people and she wanted to go into the military herself, but like they didn't let her, so she went and became a nun. And decided to write, and her writings were amazing to me because she talked about her masculinity, and to me that was like, whoa, groundbreaking. As a 4th grader, I was like, I want to write like that. I want to be like her. I want to like break the mold of just being a kid, a boy, or whatever. And then that same teacher gave me another book after I finished that one, by Pablo Neruda, who was like the best poet ever. And then I was like, whoa, this guy is hurt. I feel hurt too. I want to write like that. And so I think that's where it all really began to take form.
Mm-hmm. So this is sort of a question that comes from my studies this past year with autoethnography, which is like autobiography, but like more culturally like focused. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious how writing or art in general has maybe helped you to or educate you about your identity and your culture.
So that's an interesting question because like I feel like, so I grew up in Mexico and I came here when I was 14, so I was already like a teenager. I already had ideas. I already sort of had like an understanding of who I was. And then when I came to the United States, things like identity came up. And I'm like, what is that? But, reflecting through writing about that, about my identity, about who I was, and then who I am in through a lens of, like, the United States. Like, my writing has really helped me a lot to get to that point, to understand who I am, where I come from, what are the values that I have, what are the values of the people that also have similar identities than me. And so I think it wasn't really until I was an adult that I really started writing more about that. And like most of my writing these days is about that. It's about identity. It's about just like tradition, culture, and knowledge or lack of knowledge. And I write a lot about language, which is like, like it really shapes our identities. Yeah, so I guess to answer your question, yeah, I don't even know what your question was, but
yeah, it's kind of broad. Yeah, I guess I could say it again in another way, just like art maybe deepening or changing your perspective.
Definitely, definitely deepening my perspective, my own identity, and my own culture. Like I said, especially because I am here in a different place. And so there is so much that I can express through my writing. There's about just the pain of growing up in a different country, or like the displacement of just moving around my whole life, or my language or lack of language. Yeah. Definitely deepening.
So I also write a lot about language and writing, especially more recently. And I was writing about sort of the dynamic nature of language being like either very democratic and liberating, or oppressive and reaffirming biases and ways of thinking, systemic ways of thinking. I'm just curious how you navigate that in your writing. Yeah,
that's so funny. I think you're like onto something. I think both of those things are true. Like, both of those things are so true, because like the way that I navigate it, and I always like think about this like almost daily, because I communicate through language, right? Like everything I do, everything we do is language. Like even nonverbal language is language. Yep. So I grew up speaking Spanish, which is like my colonizer's language. I learned English, which is my oppressor's language. I speak sometimes Spanglish with some friends who can understand it and who are sort of in between these languages. There's this author, Gloria Ansaldúa, who wrote about language a lot, and she called people who kind of were in between languages like language orphans, and I really feel that deeply. I feel like a language orphan, but at the same time I think that not only me, but a lot of people have transformed that. They have transformed what little we know about all the languages we know into our own language, into our own way to communicate, into our own way to survive. I think language is a roadmap to liberation, like not necessarily English or Spanish or like any other like language that comes from men, but like the language that we create is our own roadmap to liberation. And I'm still trying to figure out how I'm still trying to figure out how to read the map. I'm in that process, I think. And I'm super interested in digging more about it.
Do you prefer to write Spanish or English?
So growing up obviously was Spanish.
Right.
When I learned English, it was still Spanish. But as a adult, it has been mostly in English. And I remember in 2018, I wrote a few pieces in Spanglish, like mostly in Spanish and a few words in English. And I remember reading it for the first time to some friends, and they loved it because they understood it. And they knew exactly what I was talking, and not necessarily what I was talking about, but the feelings that I was reflecting about. They knew exactly what that was. And then, both two pieces got published, and like there was a journal and then like a website, and then like I've got some really good feedback about those. So like I feel like every time that I create my own like version of like Spanglish in through writing, a lot of people can really identify with that, like really can find like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly how I read something. And so I don't know, I feel like I need to write more in whatever feels right to me, but lately has been English, especially being in school. Everything's in English, so I mean I might just start writing papers in Spanish and let the teacher figure it out.
Do it. Yes.
Lols.
Yeah. That's I mean, I probably have a bias because, you know, English is my first and only language that I'm fluent in, so I've only heard it and I'm tired of it. But I think what I really liked, you know, taking that Spanish block in Kino, because my final project was a poem and in Spanish, and you have to think you so much more linguistically when you're writing in Spanish, because you have to think about who you're talking to, because the words change, and like that changes the rhythm, and it changes and to me the result is just so much more beautiful than like what I hear in English. But again, it's, you know, could be my bias.
I know.
Yeah, that's
who knew colonization was so complex.
For sure.
Lols.
Yeah, and I also agree with you, like you know, mixing together different languages, and, you know, especially in like a poem or, you know, a performance, that is always super impactful for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel language exclusive and inclusive.
Right.
So like sometimes I feel like especially if you like know your audience, and if you include something that the audience will relate to, like I think they will be appreciative of you acknowledging their language or their existence period.
Exactly. Yeah. So then my next question is kind of similar in this, like, maintaining a balance between technique and just freedom of creative expression. This is a big kind of existential crisis for me, and just like, you know, do we need to learn anything about art? You know, it's like, or can we just do it and call it art? You know? Yeah, I'm curious how you, but because technique is also important, but
right. I think being technical is important for a lot of reasons. But as a writer, that's why you have editors. I was really, really, really privileged to have, not at a young age, obviously, but as an adult, to have mentors that encouraged me to step outside that box of like being technical, being writing in a certain way, in a certain format. So I was encouraged by a lot of my mentor writers to just write. I think it's important to do that, because I grown up, I did that. I just wrote, you know, I just did what a kid would do. And then when I got to school, when I actually did creative writing in school, it became more of like, oh, grammar is important. I'm like, what? Why? Or like, you have to write in this format. And I think as an adult, I was editing myself before I even was writing something in the paper. And when I came across some like other writers, like I asked questions, and this guy Jose became my mentor. He's like one of my favorite writers, and he was like, just write, dude. Like, just don't care about grammar, don't care about don't care about like what you think the way it will sound. Like, just write, just let it out. There's people who will edit it later, and then you can like say, no, don't edit it, period. And so when I did a fellowship, I think in 2019 with the Writers Guilds, and I got to that room, and literally this guy, Rich, he was just like sitting there. He was like, okay, pull out your notebooks. You're going to write about whatever, X, Y, and Z. And you're going to write now. And you have 15 minutes. And we were all just kind of startled because we just sat down. And we're like, what? Like, but what are the, like, the rules or whatever? He's like, there's no rules, just fucking write. Yeah. He was just yelling at us, just write. And they were like, okay. Like, and we just wrote for 15 minutes. Nonsense. He's like, don't stop. Don't you dare stop. And there was 5 people in the room, 5 writers. And, like, those short pieces became literally masterpieces because we didn't have those parameters, we didn't have those rules. And it was such an amazing experience, and whatever I wrote I still loved dearly and deeply, and it was really healing for me to write that because he just popped into my head. Yeah, anyways, and that's how I also got this tattoo based on that exercise. But anyways, yeah, it's so beautiful when you don't have those boundaries, those borders to definitely just expand.
Yeah, I was really lucky to get that sort of exposure at a young age going to Waldorf school because, like, there was a creative writing block that I had in, like, I think it was 6th grade where we did stream of consciousness, you know.
Ooh, did you like that?
That's why I'm a writer. I think. Like, I just got so much satisfaction out of almost, it felt like improvising, like with music almost. It was like, it was the same thing to me. Or at least I felt the same kind of emotional response, you know, in myself.
It's like a freestyle.
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
Just say what you need to say.
And it really improved my academic writing too. I think just like having that experience at a young age to be like just writing with flow, kind of like, you know, and just, it doesn't really matter what you're writing, just be writing. And that's such a good like skill to have. I think it helps so much with, you know, when you're writing essays and other more, you know.
I agree. I think like, I agree, because like coming to school, I think that is such a, like you said, a skill to learn before you do school, or before you do higher education, because there's a lot of writing in it,
right?
And I think a lot of people, especially young people, get so scared of it. They get so scared of writing, but I just feel like we have so much shit to say.
Absolutely.
So like, just like, anyway. So
my next question is super meta.
Oh Lord, here we go.
So, do you believe in high art, or like higher art? That is art that is like objective quality and value, or is value and quality in art completely subjective?
Yeah, I don't yeah, next question. No, I don't know. Like, I think it is subjective. I do agree that it's subjective, but I also like, I don't know. Like, yeah, definitely art can be subjective to whoever. 'Cause like I could write a masterpiece to me, but then to like an editor be like, this is shit.
Yeah.
You know, like that has happened when I'm super confident about something. Someone else is like, well, like, you missed the point. And I'm like, what? And so like, it is definitely subjective in my experience, but I don't know. But there's I don't know.
I mean, I think I can talk a little bit about.
Please do.
Because I've asked many people this question now, and I love asking it because, I mean, it's still an ongoing existential crisis in me as like a student and artist, and like, I mean, it's where I clash a lot with teachers, because it's like, how can you teach something that is so, you know, revolutionary and variable, and like its purpose is to kind of like break the status quo. I agree. Know, in many ways. So how do you teach that, you know, and how could you tell me, or how could you tell anyone that they're wrong in what they're doing, or that they're not working enough, or that they're not, you know, that I get kind of defensive of my peers when, you know, my teachers are like, you're not working hard enough, like you're not putting in the work to make high art. and to make quality. And I don't know, I think quality itself is just like such a weird thing, you know, that I find very subjective.
Also subjective.
So it's like and I think also it has so much to do with like, you know, the culture that you live in, and like, you know, what is valuable in your, you know, community, your society. So
I feel that strongly, because I think I see that too, and I also get defensive because I think like a lot of the times, like, you can't teach, like, by teaching you're setting boundaries, you're setting like boundaries to art, which art should not have. And so every time a student learns something in a classroom, they are trapped in those boundaries. I feel like unless they expand and explore outside of the classroom and do their own thing. I think like the best way to do art is just by doing it.
Right.
But just doing it. And who are we to say that that's not art? You know, like, it's so, or that's not like hard work, or I agree. I definitely agree with you. It's such a interesting dynamic to teach art in schools, because I see the benefit of it, but also I can see the detriment that has in students. It's like teaching math. Like, a lot of times when math teachers, they tell you, well, this is wrong and this is the wrong way to do it, and then like students, they just get like traumatized the rest of their lives, and they hate math because they think they're bad at it.
Right.
And it's the same thing with art.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
So like it's just like there's gotta be a better way.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I feel like it is important, like, if anything is important to study in terms of like making art, I think it's like the history, you know, like the context in which your society or culture values something more than something else. And also, like, each art form, each medium totally has like a different meaning of value. I mean, like a painting and a piece of music, like, that's totally different. Because like, I don't know. it's
like it's all subjective, and it's I think like I haven't really thought much about, or I mean I have thought, but I recently haven't thought much about like you just said, like geographical art. Like it's because like I know that like there like, especially where I come from, there is a hierarchy to art always, and like at the top, especially where I'm from, at the top of it is like music and like folklore dancing. Like that's like the top of, like, that's art for my people. And then like they'll see a painting and they're like, that's not art. So they will go buy like they'll go buy to a market and buy a picture of cheeses, and that's art for them. So that's like a print or something, and it's just so, it's really interesting. So it's really subjective, and like it really depends where you're from. Like, so I definitely agree with that.
Totally. I feel like you could speak to this question in like regards to your own work, or just like in the broader sense of like art and like literature in general. But how have you felt that art can evolve society towards a more democratic, or maybe even like utopian sort of ideal of what society could be?
No, I think that art is like powerful in ways that you can create awareness about just about anything that you need to create awareness about. And I think art has like the power to move people and to change perspectives. And I've seen it happening. I've seen it happen. I've seen it like through my work and through other people's works. I think with like very specific, like hyper specific issue like immigration, a lot of the work that I create, it's towards an audience that does not have any awareness about like the struggles of just getting here, period. And I think a lot of people that have read my stuff is like have definitely not changed their mind, but see my perspective and honor it. You know, we're not making activists out of them, but we're definitely like transforming like the way that they think about us. And I've seen that through other like colleagues and other friends and other artists, especially through murals. I've seen like people like stop and really like reflect and sometimes see themselves in the art, or see other people, see their friends and their families in that art, and it changes their perspective. And I think when we all begin to do that, when we all begin to trust in the power of art, we all can like collectively transform the way that we think about just everything. And you know, like, I don't know about utopian, but
right.
a world, but like just a better world than exists right now. Like, I think when we all can collectively get on the same page about like the issues that exist, and like we can live in harmony. But like currently we're not doing that. But I think it's like it's a process, and art plays a huge role in it. From like a poster at a protest to like, I don't know, to like a poem read at the inauguration, or something like that. Like, art is a huge part of social movements, and we need more of it. You cannot have social movements without arts. And so I think like there is a way. It's just so slow.
Totally. I guess I'm curious what you think of like just like art at this school. And 'cause one of I don't want to project onto you, but I just want to share what I feel is that there's a real lack of performing arts. That there's a lot of art classes you can take here, but the focus is really therapy, like therapeutic, expressive healing arts, which is awesome. Like, art is very therapeutic, but I think that a result of that is a lot, putting art in this category can be harmful. And also I think that so many students here, when they engage with art, whether it's a performance or specifically performance actually, that they expect safety and security in the space, and so they often feel attacked if there's something that triggers them in a performance. And I'm in this place where I'm like, I don't want to like provoke you just for the sake of being provocative, but like, how do I find that balance as an artist to meet you somewhere in the middle where I'm not policing myself and my expression for the sake of others, but also I'm not intentionally being provocative just to provoke.
To be that.
Yeah.
I think there is, I don't know. I haven't really experienced much art in the school. I've only been here through like 1 year, and it was COVID. Right. So like, it was really hard to do that. The times that I came across art that I really loved it. It was like student initiated. Like, it really wasn't the school doing it. It was like a student put at they put at a concert, and like they played for a few hours, and I was like so into it, and I love everything about it. And then like static dance, like I love that. Like, I love like just expressing myself through movement, and that was also other students putting it together. And so I think there's definitely more than the school can do. But as far as policing and being authentically yourself, like, I truly 100% believe being authentic, and the way to be authentically yourself is just to do you, and without harming others, of course. And I think that this happens a lot, like, especially with like I would say it is a generational thing, especially with like the end of millennials and Gen Zs. Like, it happens a lot of like, which is like why a lot of the times there's like trigger warnings or like just saying like, or just like consent or whatever. But at the same time, like, it's I mean, like, those two things are your responsibility, of course, and also like the consumer of VR also has the responsibility to take care of themselves and say, no, I do not want this, and move on and leave, and yes. Or like just, I think like a lot of people, like, we all have that responsibility to take care of ourselves, and the way that we do that is on our own. Like, I cannot blame someone for their content, because that's their perspective, that's their art, and like, again, who am I to tell you not to do your art your own way? And so I agree with you, like, it's a hard thing to do, but it's attainable. Like, through my art, through my performance, I do trigger warnings, and especially when I'm about to get into like really intense shit, like, I don't know, sexual assaults or rape or something like that, I make sure to tell people, and just let them know, and after that, like, it's really on them to take care of themselves. But yes, I think like there's so many barriers to being just yourself and doing your thing, but you just gotta push through all of that and do you. Like, that's the best thing you can do. And I think there's definitely room in this college to do more performance art that is supported by the school and not just like initiated by students. Because I think, like, I'm sure that there's been some beautiful moments. I know that, or like as RAs or like the events people have put like open mics, and like there's been some gems, and there's just been some really good times at those events, and like we need more of that. We got a lot of shit to say.
Yeah, I mean, this community is so ripe for performance. Like, I think
really,
and I think, I was talking to someone who used to teach theater here, and he was saying how expressing the generational sort of disconnect of what you were saying, of that maybe heightened sensitivity or awareness of vulnerability, that where performance can come in and really help strengthen people, and I think also, like, everyone's just trying to do the right thing here. There's so much effort that's like going in, and that's that could be problematic, but then there's also places that don't put any effort, where like critical race theory is banned, and,
I know
it's such a dynamic community here, and I think performance would be so good for creating another means of language to communicate, like you were saying. That.
I think like something you just said is like literally the problem. I think in the process of trying really hard to do the right thing, people just go sideways and they don't do it. I think like I've come across, especially with like a lot of young white kids, not kids, like young adults, like they are on this, like, I guess like everybody's on their own journey, but they're like on this like social awakening, I would call it, where like I have to do things this certain way, and then like if I mess up, like they're gonna cancel me, they're gonna like hate me, and like there's so much societal pressure to do the like quote unquote the right thing, and so I think like in that process, like a lot of things get lost, and a lot of things get like diminished, and like our collective learning and our collective expression suffers. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that because it's so real, and because I've seen it so much in this school. Yeah,
definitely. I have one more question.
Yay.
Just pretty openly, like, what do you hope to see for the future of arts, or writing, and that could be for yourself or just in the big picture of everywhere?
I just wish we keep writing, like we keep creating and keep sharing. I hope like people are not so into their heads about their own art. Like I feel like a lot of people are so self-critical of their own work, and I mean you should be it to some extent, but at the same time it's like the world needs that. The world needs your input. Like share it.
Right.
So I hope that like people keep sharing their art. Like I love seeing like YouTube videos or like Instagram stories of people like just playing their guitar, and I'm that one person who's like liking them and cheering them, and I love that. I love people expressing themselves, because like when we don't express ourselves, then we become like sick. Period.
Yeah.
So I hope that for the world, for this community especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.